Some stories don't begin with clarity, they begin with a feeling, the kind that sits behind their ribs, whispering that something is missing. Summer Pockets opens with Hyrie stepping onto a quiet island and muttering a line that sounds almost too poetic for him. A wounded bird of passage has come to the island. He doesn't know why he says it. He laughs it off, embarrassed, like the word slipped out from a place his mind hasn't reached yet. But the island hears him, and so does the story. Because the Summer Pockets anime isn't really the tale of a boy arriving somewhere new, it's the story of a heart returning to a place it's forgotten. A place where summers don't pass, they wait. Welcome to part 1 of a 5-part video series exploring Summer Pockets, a journey through memory, loss, and the summers we carry. Across these 5 episodes, we'll follow Hyrie through 5 summers. The island's summer, Kushima's summer, Tsumugi's summer, Ao's summer, and finally, Shiroha and Umi's summer. 5 stories, 5 wounds, 5 ways of learning how to say goodbye. And it all begins here, with the island that heals broken wings. Torishirojima, a quiet island somewhere off the Japanese coast. One ferry, one lighthouse, one shrine, a handful of houses and back roads and cicadas that never seem to stop. Hyrie arrives with nothing but a small suitcase and an even smaller sense of direction. He's 17, tired, worn thin by expectations he couldn't carry, looking for an excuse. Any excuse to disappear for a while. So he takes the most mundane errand imaginable. Go clean out your grandmother's old storage shed on the island. But the moment he steps off the ferry, the world feels strange. He's hit with sudden deja vu, that odd sensation of remembering something that couldn't have happened. The sunlight looks familiar, the air tastes nostalgic, a white butterfly glides past him, shimmering, and something inside him whispers, "I've been here before." Summer Pockets doesn't open with plot, it opens with atmosphere. A softness, a warmth, like walking back into a dream you forgot. Because Torishirojima is not just a place, it's a threshold, a liminal space between memory and reality. Between the world of the living and the worlds we carry inside us. Between childhood and the future we are too afraid to face. Hyrie doesn't recognize it yet, but the island does. When the grandmother meets him at the pier, she doesn't greet him with a welcome or a smile. She asks, "Why does your heart hurt, boy?" She says it gently as she's not talking to him, but to every version of him that ever walked these shores. And this is where the story quietly reveals its truth. Hyrie Takahara did not come to the island on purpose. He came because he didn't know where else to go. Underneath his casual teenager grin, Hyrie carries the failure of dropping the baton in a relay, teammates who encouraged him but whom he still feels he betrayed, memories of his parents arguing behind closed doors, a sense of being out of place at home, in school, in his own life, and the fear of becoming someone who only ever runs away. He calls himself a wounded bird, and even if he meant it as a joke, there is sincerity hidden in that. He feels like someone who once knew how to fly, who once knew how to enjoy a summer, to feel sunlight without guilt, but somewhere along the way, his wings broke. And so he arrived here, to the one place that feels like it's waiting for him. The magic of Summer Pockets is that it never points at its mysteries, it lets you feel them. From the very beginning, Locals call him by the wrong last name. Kids repeat lines that Hairi himself said earlier, as if time is echoing. A lighthouse girl hums a tune he somehow remembers. Shiroha stares at him like he's a face from an old dream. A white butterfly keeps appearing at turning points. The past feels too close and too alive. Even simple conversations feel off. When Hairi orders a meal and gets something unexpected, the cook laughs. Chicken and egg, they die together. That's why it's happy. A strange line, almost comedic. But this is how the island speaks. Through metaphor, through superstition, through symbols that only make sense once you have lived its summers. Nothing is explained. Everything is felt. Because Torishirojima isn't a puzzle box. It's a memory box. And Hairi has only just started opening it. Visual novel routes usually branch into separate universes, but Summer Pockets treats each route not as a what if, but as a memory pocket. A summer preserved somewhere out of reach. A summer that existed. A summer that mattered. A summer that healed a different wound. Each girl represents one way Hairi needs to heal. Kushima teaches him how to feel childhood again. Tsumugi teaches him how to cherish time that won't last. Ao teaches him the weight of memory and the joy of carrying it. Shiroha and Umi teach him how to face the future and release the past. And threading through all of them is a single uncanny figure. The fairy grandma, the island's mysterious elder. She's not Hairi's grandmother, she's not part of the storage shed subplot, she's something else entirely. A watcher, a threshold guardian, a woman who speaks in the riddles Hairi creates because she's touching more than one summer at once somehow. She's the only character who perceives the multi-route reality. She sees all the versions of Hairi at the same time, and every time she speaks, it feels like she's talking to a Hairi we haven't met yet. Her comments are fragments of foreshadowing, echoes from routes not yet lived. She's the island's memory made human in some way. Before the supernatural blossoms, before butterflies reveal their souls, before liminal fields and impossible timelines intertwine, Summer Pockets gives us something profoundly simple. The mundane. Breakfasts cooked by a cousin too small for the stove, afternoon ping pong, local slang you learn by accident, doskoi, seaside sunsets bleeding into orange, cicadas humming like a heartbeat, long walks back home for no reason at all. This is not a filler, this is healing. Because people don't fix themselves through grand revelations, we heal through gentler routines, small joys, and moments where someone sits beside us without asking why we look tired. Hairi forgot how to spend a summer. The island teaches him through these rituals, these quiet slices of life that slowly pull him back to himself. Summer Pockets isn't telling you a story, it's reminding you of a feeling you once had. Hairi's story has only just begun, because on this island, every person he meets will open a door to another version of summer, another memory he didn't know he needed, another piece of himself he thought he lost. And the first of those doors opens with a runaway suitcase, a pirate flag emblem drawn in childish determination, and a girl who smiles like she's been waiting 10 years for him to finally come back. Kushima Kamome, the girl who turns nostalgia into adventure, and a single childhood promise into a summer worth remembering. Have you ever tried to return to a place you loved as a child, only to discover that the place remembers you less than you remember it? There is a particular ache in that realization, a feeling like opening a storybook that once felt like home, only to find the colors faded. The page is thinner, the character is smiling at someone you used to be. Kamome Kushima enters Hairi's life with that ache wrapped in a smile. She arrives on Torishirojima like someone chasing both a memory and a promise, carrying a suitcase that seems too light and nostalgia that seems far too heavy. Somewhere on this island, 10 summers ago, she and her childhood friends hid a treasure. Not gold, not jewels, just a piece of innocence they thought they would return to someday. Kamome came back, even if the world hasn't kept pace with her. So Kamome doesn't just appear, she bursts into the story. She sends her suitcase rolling down a hill, rides it straight into the ocean, and surfaces with a laugh that feels impossibly bright. Hairi panics. Kamome sparkles. And in that strange chemistry, her entire arc reveals itself. Everything about her feels slightly off-kilter in the most endearing way. She speaks to Hairi like they already know each other. She pulls him into her pace, not the other way around. She flusters him just by being fearless. And she carries a pirate cat emblem with the seriousness of a noble crest. But beneath her playful energy, something feels displaced. Kamome isn't here to explore the island. She's here to retrace it. To follow a map she drew 10 years ago. A map of secrets, games, promises, and a treasure her younger self believed would still be waiting for her. Kamome has returned to find the version of herself she left behind. Before Hairi's summer began, before the island felt like a place suspended between memory and light, there was a little group of kids. Taka, Tsubame, Hayato, Suzume, and Kamome herself. They called themselves the Higanekos, a tiny, homemade adventure club for children who believed summer would last forever. They made a pirate flag, they crafted clues, they whispered legends about a hidden treasure ship waiting to be discovered, and they promised, when we grow up, we'll meet here again in 10 years. But childhood promises age, kids drift apart, summers stop returning the way they used to. Everyone moved on, except Kamome. She kept the promise, she came back, and she never stopped believing. But the heartbreaking truth is, she's the only one who remembered. And as she retraces the clues with Hairi, something uncanny begins to happen. Hairi experiences deja vu. Moments feel familiar despite never happening to him. Memories flash like ripples from someone else's past. Because Kamome's presence isn't ordinary, it pulls him into her story. A story written by a child who desperately wanted to hold on to the summer she never got to finish. Halfway through the arc, Kamome's energy falters. Her steps get slower, her breath shortens. She hides discomfort behind a smile. The truth emerges in fragments. Kamome has been sick for most of her life. Hospitals, not playgrounds, were her home. She missed school, summers, plans, friendships, everything children aren't supposed to miss. And the suitcase? It's not just quirky storytelling, it's literal. Small case she could manage alone during hospital transfers. A container for every place she wished she could go. When she fell into what her mother calls an eternal sleep, a deep coma, her body was taken overseas for treatment. But her heart remained here, and it's her consciousness, her memory, her desire that returns to Torishirojima through the glowing white butterflies that haunt the island's summers. Kamome isn't fully alive in the physical sense, but she's not dead either. She's suspended between worlds, kept afloat by a promise she never stopped believing in. And when the treasure chest finally opens, we find not gold or jewels, but a simple drawing of a ship, a child's treasure, a summer frozen in time. Kamome cries, not because the treasure is small, but because she finally remembers why it mattered. It wasn't about finding something, it was about returning to someone she used to be. Kamome's story isn't only about searching for a pirate ship, it's about searching for the part of herself she left behind. But to understand this, we need to speak honestly about what the anime hints at. Quietly, softly, beneath the humor and the running and the childish pirate slogans. Kamome isn't just a quirky travel. She's a girl whose body lies far away, resting in a hospital bed. She has spent years in fragile health, her childhood shaped more by imagination than physical freedom. Her return to the island isn't entirely physical. It's a mixture of memory, longing, and the island's strange way of welcoming those with unfinished summers. So when Hyre follows the white butterflies into the hidden cave, he isn't just following a clue in a treasure hunt. He's crossing a threshold, and in that liminal space, part memory, part dream, part reality, Kamome appears before him. Not a ghost, not a illusion, but a part of her that stayed behind when her body was carried away to the mainland years ago. The anime never spells this out in sharp detail, it leaves it as a feeling, the sense that the island holds on to people who loved it deeply, especially children whose summers ended too soon. And so the treasure they find together isn't the pirate ship itself, it's return. The return of a promise, the return of a girl's childhood wonder, the return of a summer she thought she had lost forever. Later, after the island summer concludes, we learn her body lay comatose in Finland. The story implies her awakening, but it remains unshown, leaving us to imagine the day her legs stood firm again. Every Summer Pockets route is about healing a different kind of wound. Kushima's wound is absence, a decade-old promise left hanging in the air. Kamome's wound is interruption, a childhood that ended before it was ready to. And Hyre, who arrived on the island calling himself a wounded bird, finds in her a mirror he wasn't expecting. Like Kamome, he has memories he closed the door on. Like Kamome, he ran away from the place where he once felt small. Like Kamome, he lost a summer, the summer when everything began to hurt. But by walking beside her, by letting himself be pulled into her adventure, he remembers how to feel wonder again. Kamome teaches him that time doesn't heal by moving forward, it heals by circling back, by returning to the places where we froze, and giving them one more chance to breathe. Her pirate flag isn't just a symbol of adventure, it's a symbol of continuing, even when you are scared, even when you are lonely, even when the people around you move on faster than you can. Kamome's smile says, "Let's keep going even if our wings are small." And that is why this arc sits so early in the story. Because Hyre needs someone who remembers how to be child, so he can remember how to live. Kamome's summer ends the way childhood summers always do. Quietly, suddenly, like a page closing itself. But Hyre doesn't leave with sadness. He leaves with something brighter. The sense that a promise kept even years too late can still change the shape of your heart. And next, the islands opens another door. A girl who sings in the lighthouse at sunset, a girl whose smile hides decades of hesitation, and a girl whose summer is not about returning, but about running out of time. Have you ever met someone whose smile felt warm, but a little too fragile? Like sunlight seen through old glass, beautiful but distant enough to make you ache? Tsumugi Wenders is that kind of girl. Hairi first sees her sitting on the lighthouse railing at sunset, humming a tune she can't quite remember, as if she's calling out a memory she lost, or maybe one she never had. And from the moment she turns toward him, the feeling is unmistakable. This is a girl caught between wanting to live and being afraid she won't know how. Because some summers don't give you clarity, they give you a choice. And Tsumugi's entire arc is a slow, quiet decision to say, I want to be here, even if I'm scared. So, compared to the grand emotional storms of other heroines, Tsumugi enters Hairi's life like a soft breeze. No drama, no chaos, no tragic backstory thrown into the open. Just a simple introduction. A girl who says she's looking for what she wants to do. A girl who likes old things, books, trinkets, dusty corners, because they feel polished by time. A girl who seems gentle, polite, and a little too careful with her words. Her relationship with the lighthouse feels symbolic before we even understand why. She sits high above everyone. She watches the sea as if waiting. She hums songs she doesn't fully remember, and Tsumugi feels like a pause in the summer, a place where everything holds its breath. And Hairi, who carries his own silent weight, recognizes that pause immediately. He doesn't know her story yet, but he knows what loneliness looks like. At first, Tsumugi feels like the innocent heroine archetype. Soft-spoken, polite, a little naive, a little too formal. But the more time Hairi spends with her, the more this innocence reveals itself as something else entirely. Hesitation. Tsumugi isn't naive, she's cautious, as if she's watching the world from 2 steps away, testing every choice before she makes it. She likes rules because rules make life predictable. She likes routines because they keep her anchored. She likes the lighthouse because it's steady, unmoving, safe. Where Kamome barrels into summer like a runaway suitcase, Tsumugi approaches everything like she's afraid the world might tip if she presses too hard. And this is where her arc hits emotionally. Tsumugi isn't lost. She's afraid of moving, because moving means risking change. Her humming, that soft, half-forgotten melody, becomes a symbol of her inner world. A desire she can't name, a dream she can't articulate, a song that hasn't fully formed. And Hairi feels it too. Her presence nudges something inside him, something he's been holding shut. Tsumugi's route in the anime starts gently. Beach days, lantern festivals, silly conversations, late night hangouts under warm lamplight. But slowly, subtly, something feels off. Tsumugi avoids talking about her past. She hesitates whenever feelings deepen. She vanishes from scenes a little too easily. Her sadness comes and goes like shifting wind. And the truth blooms slowly. Tsumugi is not fully a girl of this era. She isn't a ghost, she isn't a hallucination, she isn't a spirit in the traditional sense, but she is connected to something older. A past that the island hasn't let go of. Her relationship with the lighthouse reflects this perfectly. It's a monument to waiting, a place where people looked out for someone who never arrived. a symbol of longing that lasted for decades. The anime keeps her past understated, gentle, implied, never spelled out harshly. But the emotional truth is clear. Tsumugi represents a story that was left unfinished. She carries the weight of a girl who hesitated too long, whose chance slipped away, and whose feelings were never resolved. Hyre isn't just spending summer with a girl, he's helping a heart remember how to beat. One of the most beautiful parts of Tsumugi's arc is how small the turning points are. She laughs a little more freely, she leans in when she speaks, she lets her guard down, she allows summer to touch her, even if it scares her. Hyre and their friends build a makeshift balcony out of recycled cans, paringles, just to make her smile. They give her a place to stand, not above the world, but with it. And piece by piece, Tsumugi begins to choose life instead of watching it pass by. Not through dramatic declarations, but through gentle, everyday bravery. Sitting closer, speaking honestly, trying something new, humming a song fully instead of half remembered. And when she finally says what she wants, when she finally calls this summer hers, you feel something click into place. This wasn't about saving her, this was about letting her step forward. Even if her time on the island is fleeting, even if she can't stay forever, the growth is real. Tsumugi chooses to live a summer she was once too afraid to begin. Tsumugi's story carries a quiet truth. Not all connections are meant to last a lifetime. Some are meant to save a moment. Hyre arrives on Torishirojima as a boy running from his own broken future. Tsumugi arrives as a girl afraid to create one. They meet exactly where they need to, in a summer that exists outside the usual rules of time and consequence. And through each other, she learns that beginnings are worth risking. He learns that endings aren't always failures. Tsumugi doesn't teach Hyre to forget. She teaches him to step into life imperfectly, softly, courageously. Her arc reframes the whole series. You don't need decades to matter to someone. Sometimes one summer is enough. And so Tsumugi's soft summer fades into memory and Hyre steps into the next, because the island isn't done with him yet. Next is a girl who sees the things most people try to forget. A girl tied to the island's deepest wound and its oldest memory. Ao Sorakado. Some people carry memories like keepsakes. Ao Sorakado carries hers like wounds. She's loud, playful, blunt to the point of rudeness if she thinks it'll get a laugh. To most people, Ao feels like the kind of a girl who never stops moving, the human version of a summer storm. But sometimes people who talk the loudest are the ones terrified of silence. Our story isn't about adventure like Kamome's, or hesitation like Tsumugi's. Our story is about memory, the kind that clings to you, shadows you, echoes inside your ribs long after you try to bury it. Because some summers don't fade, some summers stay. And Sorakado, she's been living in one for what feels like years. Hyre meets Ao at the island shrine, a place that feels older than Torishirojima itself. She's crouched there, fiddling with a capsule toy she may or may not have borrowed, arguing with the local kids in the same breath she protects them. Ao Sorakado, the orange-haired firecracker of the island. Half wildcat, half guardian spirit. She teases, she punches, she flirts badly, she jokes even worse. But beneath all of that noise, she carries a stillness she refuses to look at. Ao claims she's seen everything on the island. Every corner, every secret. And somehow, she says it like she means it. Hyre notices it first in her silences, Those brief moments where her voice drops, her posture softens, and her eyes linger somewhere behind him, as if she's looking into a memory rather than at the world. The shrine smells like a salt and old wood. To most people, it's a postcard. To Ao, it's a reminder. One she never asked for, but can't walk away from. Ao Sorakado bursts into Hairi's life like a gust of summer wind. Loud, chaotic, sleepy, lovable. Someone who feels too alive to ever be hiding something. But Ao's energy isn't confidence. It's compensation. Because beneath her sunshine, Ao carries a fear she can barely say out loud. Her older twin sister Ai lies unconscious in a hospital bed. Not dead, not gone, but trapped somewhere between memory and silence. And the glowing butterflies Ao chases through the mountains every night, they are not spirits of the dead, they are not souls waiting to pass on, they are Shichieisho, the scattered remnants of people's lost memories, fragments of their past, pieces of the twin Ao loves more than anything in the world as well. Ao's route isn't about romance at first sight, it's about a girl trying to pick up the shattered pieces of people and ideally her sister's identity one by one before they blow away forever. The Sorakado family holds an old responsibility. Guide these butterflies back to the border between worlds. Retrieve memories that would otherwise vanish. Only spiritually sensitive people or animals can see them, and Ao has been doing the job alone for quite a while. At night, while her friends sleep, she climbs the mountain with a lantern in hand, hunting the glowing butterflies that carry people's and hopefully Ai's memories away from her. But the ritual has a cost. When Ao touches a butterfly, she briefly relives the memory inside it. Sometimes they are harmless, a walk home, a shared joke, a birthday candle, but sometimes they are painful. Moments people hid, burdened thoughts, childhood fears, loneliness, illness, the sound of people crying quietly so no one else would worry in their life and memories. Ao absorbs all of it. She becomes a vessel for someone else's life, and she's terrified that at this rate she'll disappear beneath the weight of memories that aren't hers. That's the real conflict. Not monsters, not curses, not some vague supernatural threat. Ao is carrying people's entire emotional world on her shoulders, and she feels like if she lets go even once, I could be lost forever. Then comes Hairi, and the most important thing he does isn't heroic or dramatic. He simply shows up. Every night. He walks the mountain with her. He touches the butterflies when Ao is too exhausted. He listens when she finally breaks down, whispering how afraid she is to lose the only person who ever understood her perfectly. In one of the quietest, most beautiful moments of the route, Hairi meets Ai's butterfly himself. For an instant, he relives Ai's memories, her fear of losing Ao, her guilt over not being able to protect her, her love that never reaches her lips because she's asleep in a hospital bed. And when the memory ends, Iris says something so simple it almost sounds too small. I hope you can see her again. That's the moment Ao realizes she doesn't have to carry this alone. The mountain isn't hers to climb by herself anymore. Together, they reach the Sorakado family's sacred tree, Mayoi Tachibana, the border between the everyday world and the world where memories return home. And when Ao finally finds Ace Butterfly, the truth is gentle. I never blamed her. I never resented her. I never wanted Ao to suffer on her behalf. She only ever wanted her sister to be happy. With her memories returned, Ai wakes, fragile but alive, and Ao's whole world cracks open, not into grief, into relief, into possibility, into a future she never allowed herself to imagine. Our story is about guilt, yes, but even more it's about permission. The permission to rest, ask for help, laugh without feeling selfish, hold someone's hand, and believe that you're allowed to move forward even if someone you love is hurting. This arc takes the idea of memory and flips it inside out. Instead of memory as a burden, Summer Pockets shows memory as a bridge between sisters, between past and present, between the living and the liminal, between who Ao was and who she can become. And Haire, who arrived on the island calling himself a wounded bird, learns something from Ao too, that healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes healing is simply letting someone stay beside you on the nights when you're afraid to be alone. Our summer brings Haire closer to the heart of Torishirojima, to the rituals, the memories, and the borderlands between worlds. But the island has one last story to tell. A story about a girl who can see the future, and a girl who comes from the future. A story where the past loops back on itself, and the meaning of summer becomes something deeper, stranger, and more heartbreakingly beautiful. Some stories end neatly. Summer Pockets doesn't. It ends with a contradiction, a feeling that tastes like sunlight and loss at the same time. Because this final arc isn't just about a love story, it's about a girl who fears her future, and a child who comes from that very future trying to save her. It's about time loops, forgotten summers, and one impossible truth. Sometimes the most painful thing we can do is stop living in the past. Of all the girls Haire meets on Torishirojima, Shiroha Naruse is the one who feels the most delicate. Quiet, soft-spoken, distant in a way that feels intentional. She watches people the way someone watches the sea, appreciating its beauty but afraid to get too close. And eventually we learn why. Shiroha has a strange ability. She occasionally sees fragments of the future. Not long prophecies or dramatic visions, just small moments that haven't happened yet. Moments she can't understand or control. When she was younger, she saw someone fall, and later, that person did. She couldn't stop it, couldn't change it, and the island, with its long memory and sharp superstition, whispered the rumor Shiroha brings misfortune. People who get close to her get hurt. So Shiroha grew up believing she had to keep distance to keep others safe. Her instinct is to avoid connection. And then she meets Haire, a boy with broken wings who refuses to let her stand alone. But the story doesn't truly shift until the second girl appears. Ume is introduced as a cheerful, energetic 12-year-old girl who wakes Haire up every morning. Sweet, playful, a little clingy, and strangely perceptive. She knows island customs, predicts weather changes, repeats dialogue before people say it, understands events she shouldn't understand, gets emotional when Shiroha and Haire show affection, reacts strongly to the mention of August 31st, the end of summer. At first, these look like cute character quirks, but then her diary appears and everything falls into place. Ume isn't from this summer. She is Shiroha and Haire's future daughter from a timeline that already happened. In her original life, she grew up with her parents. Shiroha later died shortly after childbirth. Her father collapsed emotionally. Ume felt abandoned and full of guilt. Eventually, after a fall near a cliff, a butterfly touched her, and she was thrown back into the past. But not just once. Every time the summer ends, Umi slips into another loop, another version of the same summer, over and over and over. Each loop erases parts of her memory, makes her body more fragile, becomes harder to hold on to. But by the time the anime shows her, she's been looping for years. She remembers Kushima's adventurous summer, Tsumugi's summer of borrowed time, Ao's summer on the mountain, Shiroha's summer of fear. She has walked every route because every time she returns, she ends up crossing paths with those stories. Ume has lived all the summers, all to be near her mother she lost too early in the future. This is why she seems wise beyond her age, why she knows the island better than the locals, and why she reacts so strongly to Shiroha and Hairi's affection. It's the first time your parents ever fall in love, and you're watching it happen. The final arc reveals the other world of Summer Pockets, a quiet, sunlit field with a lone tree at the center. A place where lost memories drift, time folds on itself, the past and future touch, the dead and the living momentarily meet. Shiroha's mother became a butterfly, and Umi's soul repeatedly falls into new loops. Umi calls this place the Summer Cage, a world of endless Augusts, where time doesn't move unless you choose to leave, a place that tempts anyone who wants to escape pain. And Shiroha does. When young Shiroha discovers the truth that her mother left, that Umi came from a future where Shiroha dies, that becoming a butterfly means drifting forever in past summers. She starts to believe she should follow the same path. She thinks, if I go to the summer cage, I won't hurt anyone, I won't lose anyone, I won't be left behind. It's the same temptation Umi faced, to stay in the past instead of facing the future. And this becomes the real conflict. Umi, the girl who kept looping to escape her future, must now convince her mother to not make the same mistake. The turning point isn't supernatural, it isn't a vision, it isn't a ritual, it begins with something much simpler. Shiroha finally breaks down, letting out everything she has carried since childhood. How abandoned she felt when her mother disappeared, how terrified she is of hurting the people she loves, how lonely those summers were, how she believed she was a burden, how she convinced herself nobody would ever stay, how much she wishes she could hold on to the people she has lost. And as she's speaking, Umi listens with a silence that feels too old for her small body. A silence shaped by countless loops, countless summers, countless versions of this same pain. But the thing that frees them both doesn't come from either girl's voice. It comes from a letter. In the summer cage, the border between the present and the summers Umi has lived, Umi finds a message written by Shiroha long ago. A message Shiroha wrote for a daughter she would never get to raise, hoping somehow, someday, it would reach her. The handwriting is shaky, the words are simple, but they are everything Umi has needed to hear through every loop. When you are sad, you don't have to keep it inside. Tell someone. If you share it, you'll be okay. Umi reads the letter slowly, her hands trembling because it is the first time in all her summers that her mother's voice truly reaches her. The moment is quiet, but it breaks everything open. It frees Umi from the belief that she must carry her loneliness forever. It frees Shiroha from the idea that her love only hurts the people around her. It frees both of them from the loops, the literal ones and the emotional ones. Umi doesn't disappear because she's fading, she disappears because she is finally at peace. And when she dissolves into drifting butterflies, returning to the place where memory becomes light, Shiroha makes a choice she has never made before. She steps out of the past. She chooses the uncertain future. Not because it's safe, but because she finally believes she's allowed to have one. Summer Pockets ends with a metaphor so gentle you almost miss how painful and beautiful it is. A picture book Hairi and Shiroha once read. A butterfly with bright wings flies into a colorless world. It gives its colors away to flowers, to people, to everything it touches and meets along the way, and by the time its journey ends, its wings have turned white. That is Umi, a girl who used her last remaining summers to give her mother's life color again. A child who looped through the same August over and over, just to return something she felt was taken too soon. She's not a tragedy, she's the color in everyone else's story. And when she appears as a rainbow in the sky, the final arc of light bending over the island, it isn't a literal resurrection, it's a promise that the love she carried wasn't wasted, that the summers she lived weren't for nothing, and that Shiroha doesn't have to fear the future anymore. So in the next summer, Hairi returns to Torishirojima, older, calmer, no longer running from himself, and Shiroha is there. Not a cursed girl, not a prophet of misfortune, just a woman who learned she didn't have to live in fear. She serves him fried rice, he smiles, and without any supernatural glow or time looping magic, they start again. Because Summer Pockets isn't about rewriting the past, it's about learning to live with it. Kamome taught Hairi to chase childhood wonder, Tsumugi taught him to cherish the time that doesn't last, Ao taught him to carry memory without guilt, Ume taught him to let go of the loops we get trapped in, and Shiroha, finally, teaches him how to walk toward a future he can't predict. So, 5 summers, 5 stories, 1 life moving forward. Summer ends, but the feeling stays. And that's enough.